Minister, I can tell you on authority that NPRA has since indicated that they had seen the processes and they think that SNIT can go ahead.
We're talking about your future, okay? Even Jesus Christ says that I must work the works of he who sent me while it is day. So this is the day. A day is coming, you'll be 60 years old. You see how your body looks fresh. At age 60, you see whether it will be like this. So we are talking about age 60 and beyond.
One of the hotels was not doing very well, Labadi Beach. Our members on the board moved and pushed for a committee to be formed. The committee worked, came out with recommendations, and that is why Labadi is now making profits. We are saying that take the rest of the hotels through that process.
So there are certain situations you need to take impromptu decisions. And that's the decision that we've taken. That come Monday, every worker must sit in the house, including our trotro drivers. No transport. We all sit in the house.
Organized labor would like to reiterate its well-known position that the proposed sale of SNIT shares in the 4 hotels is not in the best interest of Ghanaian workers. We therefore demand that SNIT terminates the process immediately. From Monday, 15th of July 2024, all workers in Ghana must not go to work until SNIT publicly announces the termination of the process for the sale of its shares in the hotels.
Well, there you have it, the tale of the tape as far as organized labor versus, well, government and SNIT, to be specific, when it comes to this sale of shares to Rock City. Rock City has come out with a statement. They are no longer proceeding with it. SNIT has also withdrawn. But organized labor, the GMA, among others, have said, listen, we're going to go ahead with our planned industrial action because we've not seen any documentation, anything that will assure us that this will not happen. Well, today, joining us for a conversation on that, and we'll be looking at other statements as well that have emerged, we have the Executive Director, Africa Center for Retirement Research, Mashud Abdallah. Mashud, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and good morning to your viewers.
It's a great pleasure having you. If we have that statement, let's just slap it on so maybe we can walk through it before we get into the conversation proper. So there it is, and SNIT's media release saying discontinuation of sale of 60% stake in hotels. The board and management of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust wish to inform the public that the process to divest 60% of SNIT's stake in the hotels has been terminated. We wish to assure pensioners, contributors, and the public of our commitment to managing the affairs of the trust prudently for the sustainability of the pension scheme. And of course, that is the statement from SNIT. Mashud, I know you followed this with keen interest, and Elizabeth Ohene, the board chair, actually citing that there. Should we have got here?
Okay, so I think we need to give context to the whole conversation. We have to start from the start. Social security is a very important human development area, but unfortunately, it is a component that has been relegated to the background by African government and including Ghana. If you look at social security provisions in manifestos, we've taken a look at 2008, 2012, 2016, and 2020 party manifestos. We realize that as far as retirement policies are concerned, either social security policies are completely missing or vaguely stated and sometimes just unimplementable. And it's a major problem, and I think the focus would be to develop the social security policy. What happens is that there are a lot of gaps in the social security law and the LI, and selfish individual persons take advantage of the gaps that we have in the system.
Selfish individuals.
Individuals take advantage of the situation and just mess up with the financial security of the Ghanaian people. So if you look at all that has happened, we shouldn't have gotten here because clearly, what do they call it? TUC and organized labor have made it very, very clear. They said it is not, the sale of the hotel is not in the best interest of the Ghanaian worker, and I agree. I don't know the basis or how they arrive at that conclusion, but from a technical point of view, from a research point of view, from best practices, if you look at what do they call best practices around the world, this we shouldn't have gotten here to begin with.
All right, let me ask you. The NPRA cleared the deal. It gave the go-ahead. Initially, it told Snit, hold on, let's look into this. And like you heard, Ignatius Bafwe, the Minister for Employment and Labor Relations, coming to say that they had cleared the deal. Business, I want you to look at it from ethics and morality, but also the business sense. Because people have said that, oh, Ghanaians are being emotional. Okudzeto Ablakwa is being emotional about the situation rather than facing the reality. Did it make business sense? And ethically and morally, I want you to put those together. What did you see?
Yeah, clearly, if you look at the sequence of events on the build-up to the point that we are, somebody or some people are clearly playing politics with the financial security of this country. Now, let's go from the start. You know, when Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa blew the whistle on the sale of SSNIT Hotels, you know, it became a national subject and it was discussed all over the place. SSNIT still insisted on selling the hotels. Then it was followed by a massive, demonstration. Upon the demonstration, the Minister for Employment and Labor Relations in charge of pensions, you know, invited all the stakeholders, SSNIT management, MPRA management, and organized labor. They discussed. Then in May, organized labor threatened that, look, we are saying you need to halt the sale of the hotels, and you guys are still insisting. We are going to demonstrate, and you are going to see one of the big demonstrations that we have ever seen since the beginning of independence. That was in May. Then we didn't hear anything. Then we had a letter from MPRA indicating that they have directed SSNIT to halt the sale of the hotels. Now, we are talking about MPRA, and MPRA here means we are talking about the board, we are talking about management, which includes the, members from organized labor. Then later, we have the information, the minister indicating that MPRA has cleared the sale of the SSNIT hotels. Now, the question we're asking ourselves is, where does, the members from organized labor belong? Because if you are telling me that they have cleared it, it means they were not in support. Initially, they indicated that they would have to hold the sale. Then on the other hand, they say they have cleared them. We need to answer the question of where things stand. But
so that is organized labor itself.
Exactly.
Has questions to answer. Because if you look at the
clearly,
board, they have what, seven representatives?
No, on the MPRA board, they have 4.
No, not on the MPRA. I'm talking
about... Yeah, on SSNIT board, they have 7. We have 4 coming from organized labor, 2 from Employers Association, and 1 from Pensioners Association. But on the MPRA board, in fact, we have to put the focus on the MPRA board for the sake of the context.
Okay.
On the MPRA board, organized labor has 2.
Right.
Then Pensioners Association have 1. Then Employers Association have 1, making 4. Against 7 government and government-related entities.
So it is clear that government and government-related entities likely would have been in one pool.
Exactly.
And then Labour
would have been on one side.
Labour could not possibly have won this fight at the MPRA
No,
board.
of course, they didn't vote. In decisions like this, hardly, as far as Social Security Administration and governance in Ghana is concerned, in the boardroom, hardly would a decision come to the point of, voting. Clearly, we need to really understand the position of organized labor at the time they were halting the sale of the hotels. Again, we need to understand the position of organized labor at the time it was cleared. If a minister tells you that MPRA eventually has cleared SSNIT to go ahead with the sale, where was the position of organized labor at the time? I think we have to interrogate that. But morally, somebody is clearly toying with the financial or the future financial security of, of workers in this country. And it is something, we have long seen MPRA as the elephant in the room. I think it's about time we place the focus on them. Look, if we get MPRA right, everything will fall to place.
When you say if we get it right, what do you mean? Should we, for example...
You see,
release it from, and I'm using these words carefully, the shackles of politicization?
Yes, that is part. That is part. But again, in appointing, persons at the helm of MPRA, I think there are a lot of things they have to really consider. We are having a case where, let me liken it to a case of a father and a child, where the child is strong financially and technically. Let me just use technically. Snit is miles ahead of MPRA in terms of technical and the understanding of social security administration. So how do you have somebody who is far ahead of you technically regulate, you regulating somebody who is far ahead of you? It doesn't work. So I think we need to bolster the technical capacity of the MPRA, up there. And we need to really get people who clearly understand the business of social security at the helm.
Are you, by extension, saying that the NPRA doesn't have what it takes to regulate an entity like Snit?
Clearly, that is what is happening. Technically, I mean, it's very, very sad. If you look at, if you look at the implementation of the Act 766, we have had the opportunity to evaluate, at the Africa Center for Retirement Research, we have had the opportunity to evaluate the social and economic impact of the Act 766 after 13 years of implementation. And we did that with TUC. We submitted a report. MPRA was part of the team that came for, in fact, we made a presentation to all stakeholders in this country. The content of the report, in terms of findings and recommendations, is strong enough for us to have a total pension reform in this country. MPRA,
pension reform?
Complete pension reforms in this country. The objectives of the Act 760, we're talking about benefit adequacy. We're talking about setting uniform rules and standards. And it is the MPRA's mandate to drive these objectives. What are we finding after 13 years? Those who retired in 2020, about 81% of them have had shortfalls in their lump sum benefit. That is, they are receiving benefits that are far lower than what they would have received if we hadn't had any reforms at all. In 2021, 62% people continue to receive benefits that are far lower than what they would have received. And it is MPRA that is not, cracking the whip. And it all has to do with how corporate trustees are regulated. So going straight, I'll just tell you that technically, MPRA hasn't got the technical metal to be able to regulate, both Snit and the corporate trustees. And it's very, very, very obvious. I think we have gotten to a point where we have to review, qualifying conditions for the appointment to the position of the Director General of Snit and that of the Chief Executive of the MPRA.
We need qualifying criteria.
We need to,
for the Director General of Snit.
Exactly. We need to review the criteria for, appointment. And what I think we have to do is that we have to reform, the qualifying condition to include membership status and even the number of months that you have contributed into the scheme. I propose that any nominated Chief Executive of MPRA or Director General of Snit must be a member and must have contributed into the scheme for at least 120 months prior to the appointment to that position.
120 months.
120 months. We are talking about 10 years. 10 now, let's take the last 6 Director Generals. 12 by 10. Let's take the last 6 Director Generals. You will find that out of the last 6 Director Generals, including the current one, 4 of them are not receiving pensions in Ghana. Why? Because they were not active contributors before their appointment. And so they haven't qualified for pension. And, for you to get somebody to, act prudently or to manage the scheme prudently as the prudency, requires, you need to get somebody with a vested interest. The person should manage the scheme as if it were his own. You would have to manage the scheme in the best interest of the contributing and the pensioner population. The person has to act in good faith at all times. And so, if the person was not a contributor and he's put at the helm, the person doesn't have the motivation to really drive the scheme the way we want it.
Of course, it makes sense.
We have to really look at, improving the social security policy dialogue. And like I indicated, it has not been demonstrated, even in the manifesto. And it will be very, very interesting, Ben. We are building up to 2024, and there have been so many things have happened in the streets in the last 2 years. You talk about the involvement of pension funds in the debt exchange program. You talk about revelation of the ILO actuarial valuation report, and you talk about, what do they call it? The sale of SNIT, whatever. We have to really focus on developing the social security policy dialogue. And it will be very interesting we are open-eyed to see what kind of policy provisions political parties are going to put in their manifestos in 2024. And I'll be glad to be back here to discuss the strength of those policies.
So you want to see, as these political parties go, their manifestos,
Clearly.
how they are going to reform
Exactly.
our pensions regimes.
So much has happened. Social security, Ghanaian pensioner is suffering. If you look at, if you look at all the social security indicators, the very objective of using social security as a tool to reduce poverty, as required in the UN Sustainable Development Goals, we are missing it, and those have been clearly highlighted in some of the reports by OECD.
What do you know about, and I'll quickly go on to other things, but what do you know about the current, Director General of SNIT in terms of the 10-year contribution bit?
No,
he's been there for quite a while.
No.
He was there as a deputy, right?
He was there as a deputy, but he came with Dr. John Ofori-Tinkran. You see, we had Dr. John Ofori-Tinkran as the Director General. Then we had 3 deputies. Out of the 3 deputies, only 1 was a contributor to the scheme. The other 3 were non-contributors.
Do you know whether the current DG has been contributing?
No, definitely once he's appointed, he'll begin to contribute. But he's certainly not going to qualify for pension. Because the person needs 180 months, definitely.
Your 10-year suggestion, he will not meet it. Is that what you're saying?
No, he's not going to meet it, certainly. He's not going to meet it.
And that in itself is a problem.
Clearly. And the proposition is that for you to appoint somebody to the position of Director General in this country, we have to make it, 1, the person must be a member of the scheme. And the person must have contributed into the scheme for at least 10 years prior to his appointment. That is the point.
It makes perfect sense, what you're saying, because like you said, vested interest.
Clearly.
Some of these major companies, Microsoft, Alibaba, and the rest, people own shares. And so because they own shares, they work assiduously to ensure that
there is motivation
the company moves forward.
There is
How then do you react to this? 2 things. 1, people have called for the dissolution of the board of SNIT. And you know who the board chair is, Elizabeth Ohene. Some have said that they have been shabby in addressing this issue. I remember there was a time where there was a meeting with organized labor, and she was furious from what Labour said with their position on this matter. Some have said the whole board must go. There's also this angle, though. Franklin Cudjoe says, for him, his view is that the fight against the sale is not a win, that it will lead to nothing. I don't know whether you've seen, but he writes, let me just quote him.
Okay.
I don't know whether to say we've won, because we've won nothing. If you go back there now, these assets are going to continue wasting. SNIT will have to cough up 1 million Ghana cedis of workers' money every year to pay light bills. So he feels it may be a Pyrrhic victory. You've won, but you've lost so much in the end. Do you agree with Franklin Cudjoe?
No, I don't agree. So let me start with the first one. I don't agree to the school of thought that would say we should dissolve the board. SNIT has the mandate to, collect contributions, invest the contribution prudently, and pay benefits. We have just had a switch. We have just had changes in management If we should have one right now, what is going to happen is that there is going to be a distortion in the operations of the trust. Yeah. And of course, this regime has got 5 months to phase out. So I don't subscribe to the position that we should let the board go. Of course, it's just left with 5 months for us to go. And if you consider the impact it's going to have on the smooth operation of the scheme, of course, we are fighting for the Ghanaian pensioner. If it happens, what is going to happen is that it's going to affect the smoothness with which pensions are paid.
But barring the impact that you speak of, if you were looking at demonstrable efficiency and effectiveness on the back of this, would you have said they should go? If you are setting aside the bit about what's the consequences.
Clearly, especially if you look at the trajectory, if you look at what has happened over the period. Now, I keep saying that, when you are assessing a leader at the helm of social security, there are key indicators you have to be looking at. And for me, from the social security research point of view, those things are very, very, very important. You are looking at how much they have grown their reserves. You are looking at how much they have grown the contributor population. you are looking at, the outlook in terms of actual valuations. If you put all of this together, I would say, what do they call it? They have done so much, and on the back of what we are seeing, hotel sales, and even the posturing with regards to the debt exchange program involving pension funds, and the way they reacted to the ILO report, I would say they should go on the basis of that. But given that the kind of distortion is going to introduce, I would say we should let them stay. I'm sure we are going to have a new administration come January 2024.
All right.
And coming to, what do they call it, Franklin Kujo's,
his assertions.
He's saying that we should let it go. The sale should have gone. That is not, that shouldn't be the case. We have had a case out of the 4 hotels, 2 of them are doing very well. And the practices in Social Security is that you have to pick the ones that the model that the one doing well is using and replicate it at the other side. But if this one had gone through, I think we have to commend organized labor. Even though they are reactive sometimes instead of being proactive. I feel Social Security provision or supervision has changed by so much. The landscape has changed, and it is important they update the way they do things. Most of the time, they are reactive instead of being proactive. I think they need to bolster their policy research unit. They need to invest into those units so that at the end of the day, they need to even go ahead of the Social Security Administration. We need them in there. So what should have happened is that they should have replicated what we haven't in Labadi on the other hotels.
Labadi Beach Hotel.
Labadi Beach Hotel, and it will pick up in no time.
I see. Do you then agree with those who said, looking at the financials of Labadi Beach Hotel, that this was a no-brainer? Comparatively, in terms of, Okuta was talking about the financials of Labadi Beach Hotel, vis-a-vis what he claimed about Rock City.
Yes.
So you agree with that standpoint?
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're saying, just duplicate the model.
Yes. They just have to pick this model and replicate it over here. You just change 1 or 2. It had to do with operation and management.
Right.
Once you pick those 2, change it in no time. It's not going to take a long time before you have it.
And we had seen that with Labadi Beach Hotel itself, because it had been on the ropes some years in the past. They had brought in some external forces, let those forces go. Ghanaians had taken over. And consistently, the hotel had been soaring, flying. So if you could execute that model, why not replicate or duplicate that model, which has worked there in other hotels?
That is what they should have done. Best practices required. And one thing that needs to be made very clear is that if I just hope organized labor stand their feet and win this one for the people of Ghana. If this one goes through, what we are going to experience is that there is going to be a major scramble for SNIT properties in the coming days. There's going to be a very bad precedent, and that is what we are going to be having.
All right. We've already started, before I go to labor and their planned demonstration and everything, I just want us to look at SNIT, NPRA, how they work. We've already started talking about that, but let's look at SNIT's investment portfolio. What do you see in there? Because at the bottom of all these discussions we're having is that, the investment portfolio, and whether it makes any sense.
Yeah, so as I said, there is the need for us to really develop the Social Security policy, and that includes the investment policy guidelines. There are a lot of guidelines we have to look at reviewing. I remember when the Director General went on a plan rendition trying to justify the sale of the 4 hotels, he kept making reference to the law. What we have seen in there, if you were to pick the procedure as far as SNIT investments are concerned, there are a lot of, unticked boxes. And so if you take the investment policy guidelines, there are a lot of gaps in there that need to be fixed. And so basically that is where we are. We need to really look at, improving the investment policy guidelines and talking about the relationship between SNIT and NPRA. I think the point has been made. NPRA is not in any position to be able to regulate SNIT. And even the corporate trustees who have just come up, 13 years ago, NPRA is not able to stand its feet, develop policy guidelines. Look, when you move from one corporate trustee to the other, the part of the objectives was to set up uniform rules and regulations for the administration and payment of benefit, and that squarely falls on MPRA. What are we seeing? Ben, move from one corporate trustee to the other. You are going to find that the benefit processing procedure differs. The investment outcome differs. Even though we have an investment policy guideline, there are so many variances in terms of investment outcomes from one corporate trustee to the other. Variances all over the place and all that. And that is affecting the pensioner. Ask yourself, if a pensioner retires and receives benefit from SNIT, it is taking on average on average 6 months for the person to get the corresponding benefit from a second tier. That shouldn't happen. We are running on a 3-tier pension system. Once you retire at the point of 60, your employer ceases to pay you to pay you salaries. Once SNIT pays you, we should have a corresponding payment from the corporate trustee. But the processing time on the second tier is so long after SNIT pays you. And those are some of the things MPRA will need to go on fix. I say uniformity of rules and regulations, they haven't been able to do anything in that area.
Let's talk about sustainability. As we talk today, how sustainable is SNIT, our collective pensions pot, where we are all contributing? For decades, people have been contributing. How sustainable is it? Vis-a-vis, especially you saw recently that report that said that by, I think, 2036, we'd be on the ropes. And then SNIT came and said, no, that is not the truth. From where you sit, what do you see? Yeah,
so basically, if you want to talk, I just want to give you a summarized idea about what actual valuation report is all about. Then we situate it into this context. When you want to talk about actual valuation report and what it means, and I hope Social Security Administration is listening, because most of the time, when they comment or when they react, sometimes you ask yourself whether people really understand the content of actual valuation report. You are looking at 3 things. 1, the actual opinion. You are looking at the diagnosis. Then you are looking at the recommendation. These are the 3 things you have to have your eye on. The opinion, diagnosis, and the recommendation, as contained in the report. For 3 successive actual valuations, 2014, 2017, and 2020, we have been told that given the social and economic environment that the scheme is going to operate, the scheme is not sustainable within the projection period, and it's set for depletion. The first one was in 2042, the other one was in 2037, and now we have 2036. And let me put it in layman's language. What if they tell you something like that? What it means is that the scheme is unable to pay benefits fully and on time by the depletion date. That is what it is telling you. Okay. So for successive actual valuation reports, that is what we have been told by ILO. Now let's come to the diagnosis. ILO will not just express an opinion like that without telling you the causes. Government indebtedness inflicts the major pain on the sustainability concern, on the sustainability effort. Then we have a high administrative cost, poor investment outcomes, and the last one has to do with, what do you call it? People are aging rapidly. That is, we are talking about demography. People are aging rapidly and it's increasing retirement rates. So these are the 4 elements that have been highlighted in the actual valuation report as accounting for rising cost of benefit against revenue. So revenue is not matching with the rising cost of benefit. And they are talking about 4 things: demography, high administrative cost, poor investment outcomes, and high government indebtedness. These are the 4. And the recommendation, they have made a lot of recommendations, but the key recommendation is that, look, if you don't increase the contribution rate from the current 11%, we have had it in 2014, SNIT was receiving 11% of workers' salaries. They said they have to change it, they need to review it upward. In 2017, they were told the same thing. In 2020, we are told the same thing. Look, I don't see Social Security Administration doing anything to engage stakeholders in order to implement the recommendation in the actual valuation report. And the recommendation is very, very simple. Please take steps, begin to engage stakeholders so that you can improve the financing rate from the current 11%.
So you agree with the ILO report?
Clearly.
All right. I have this message coming through. Abdul says, talking about the performance of state hotels, government is the largest spender. Can't we as a nation decide that all public events, confabs, etc., should or must be held in these hotels so that money paid to private hotels will go to them. This may seem biased towards private businesses, against private businesses, I think you meant to say, but the country first. That's a bit of a tricky suggestion because there's private business and we are operating.
I don't understand the text message.
So he's basically saying that government is the largest spender when it comes to some of these events every year that are held.
Sure.
And some of them may be held at Rock City, which is a private entity.
Yeah, so
some may be held in government. Can we skew it somewhat to ensure that these hotels don't go under?
Yeah, so there may be a bias towards, other private entities. But, we could have a component where government is looking at shoring up or shoring the sustainability of the SNIT scheme. And can look at something like that. Not every business, but if we want to drive or if we want to show commitment to really beefing up the sustainability concerns, then it's something that can be considered. And
what do you see to be the future of our pensions scheme? I'm talking about SNIT. Bright or dim? No,
so I think, was it 3 days ago, when I saw Madam Elizabeth Ohene's signature with the release. In fact, I got sad the whole day. And I got sad because, you see, the corporate image of the scheme, of the trust of SNIT has been badly damaged. And we have to put that squarely on the current management and the board. SNIT has the mandate to, to collect contribution, invest those contributions, and pay benefits. Now, given where we are, I wonder whether, stakeholders would want to listen. But if I were in the position of the Director General, 2 things I would do. And I believe that should start from 2025 because nobody is going to listen to the current, board or management. What they have to do is to begin to build on the corporate image. And they will have to look at building back or bringing back the confidence from public confidence into the Social Security scheme. And you know how they are going to do this? The first thing they will have to do will be to organize a national pension policy dialogue that will seek to bring together all stakeholders, including ordinary members. Let's discuss the challenges. Let's discuss the opportunities. Let's discuss the issues. I think it will be a very good starting point to bringing back the corporate image of the trust. And if they are in good light, if SNIT is in very good light, I think that should be exciting for everybody because it is the biggest social intervention program that we have in this country.
I mean, governments keep talking about social intervention, social intervention. This is the
biggest. This is the biggest. And of course, we are talking about more than the future financial security of more than 1.9 million contributors connected to the program. The program is feeding or is providing livelihood for over 250,000 or almost 250,000 pensioners and their dependents. This is key. And I think given the strength of this, we have to really focus attention. And that is why I indicated that it will be interesting to see what kind of policy provisions the 2024 manifestos from the political parties are going to contain. And I think we'll be very, very happy to interrogate, the strengths of those policies.
In other words, we need a new pensions, I don't want to say regime, but we need, what's the word? A new roadmap?
Clearly. And I think, like I was saying, we need to have a national pension policy dialogue, well organized. And I think we shouldn't just leave it to stakeholders, development partners, multilaterals. Everybody need to come on board. Social security in Ghana is not all that well. And I think it's about time as I said, we have to begin to develop the social security policy. Let's place the lenses there for the best interests of the Ghanaian worker and the Ghanaian pensioner.
I'll come to labor shortly. That's where I will actually conclude the conversation. But there's been this call from some of the minority in parliament, including Okudzeto Ablakwa, that public officials should be barred from owning, purchasing, state assets and all of that. We know in the past a few things have happened, maybe not on the scale that we are beginning to see now. Is that a step in the right direction? Will it also not impact local businessmen and investment possibilities?
Yeah, so Ben, for as long as it goes outside the realm of Social Security, I won't be able to, offer an opinion. But within the context of Social Security, where we are talking about Social Security assets, I think that is a very good point. We have never had
we are sticking to,
exactly,
let's say, SNIT assets.
Exactly. We have never had it, and we are not supposed to start. As I said, if this one goes through, or if this one had gone through, there would have been major scramble for SNIT properties. And that would mark the beginning of the end of Social Security in Ghana.
Let's look at the reaction of organized labor on this. You say, yes, they are not so proactive, but even in their reaction or reactiveness, they have been able to get the job done, so to speak. How would you assess them? If you had to score organized labor on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you score them?
Yeah, so there's a timeline, beginning from how they have been doing things all the way up to this point. I'm going to separate it. If I am going to look at the way they operate, of course, they have a core mandate to protect or safeguard the social and economic interests of Ghanaian workers. So from the start, if you look at the way they do things right now, all the way up to this point, I wouldn't say it's the best. They need to really bolster their, research unit, policy research units. They need to invest so much into research. If you go to the UK, you go to the US, you go to Netherlands, what happens is that organized labor and other related entities sometimes go ahead of the Social Security Administration. I'll give you an example. In the US, pensions are increased or pensions are indexed in November every year. And the pension indexation is based on the economic development, talking about inflation, talking about other variables. Before the Social Security Administration in the US would say we are increasing pensions by this margin, organized labor and other entities would have predicted it because they are also doing research. There's never going to be a point where the Social Security will come out and say, look, we are giving you this. And it's one of the things. Social Security pension indexation, even though it's clearly stated in the law, but it's something that is ad hoc. Somebody just decides that, okay, we are giving them this. So I think organized labor, beginning from the start all the way up to this point, I'll give them 50%, 5 out of 10. But on this one, in fact, they have exercised their mandate aptly. And I just hope that they are going to stand their ground. 100% I'll give them.
So if this deal had gone through, maybe you would have scored them lower?
I would have given them 1 out of 10. I mean, I would have said their existence is meaningless. This is very, 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 in fact, it's the best they can ever do for workers in Ghana.
Mm. Interesting stuff. If then you look at organized labor in terms of their reaction so far. In fact, from last week, I found it interesting. Even when the Rock City statement came out, even when SNIT came out, they said, no. We are going to continue with this industrial action. On Newsfile on Saturday, there was insistence. How do you find that, that stance? Is it problematic, or is it that there has been a certain trend or deception in the past, so they are wary? Where do you sit on that?
Yeah, so I've read the statement somewhere where, is it UTAG or TEU, one of them, they have now shifted from the sale of the hotels to, the dissolution of the SNIT board and its composition and all that. It appears like organized labor have other ideas beyond just the sale of, beyond just the sales of the hotels. And I think that leaves to be seen in the coming days. Until we get to understand what other elements they are calling for, it will be difficult for one to be able to tell, what exactly is happening in regards to their insistence that they are continuing with the strike.
But today, we'll be out there. There is that move. Some of it, may happen. If it did happen and they laid down their tools, would you say that was right or wrong?
No, so it depends. As far as for me, if they have a real grip, that a real commitment from government, of course, from the right sources that, look, we have halted the sale of SNIT Hotels. For me, I think that is enough for them to go back to work.
Should the statement be enough? Should the SNIT statement, not even Rock City, the SNIT statement signed by Elizabeth Ohene. Should that be enough?
No, I found the statement very scanty. I expected more. You know, the statement looked very, very scanty. I mean, for want of a better way of putting it, the statement made by the Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, and even the SNIT statement, there was total lack of respect to organized labour in the manner, you know, these two were. There
was lack of respect in the SNIT statement to organized labour.
And even the manner that the employment minister, you know, announced it on the floor of Parliament, there was total lack of respect. You know, what should have happened is that we have looked at the chronology of events. You say you are going to sell hotels. There is demonstration on the road. As a minister, you have invited all the stakeholders. You have had discussion with them. The regulator issues a statement halting the sale. Then, what do they call it? There's a statement indicating that you have halted the sale. Then, again, another statement comes to say that we have approved the sale of the hotels. Even if MPRA had communicated with the minister in regards to their current position, respectfully, what the minister should have done would have been to invite again organized labor and tell them that, look, I've had the opportunity to listen to MPRA. They have shown me A, B, C, D. And that is justifying. That looks very prudent for the collective interest of all of us. So how do we see? There was a total breakdown in consensus and transparency in the entire process.
All we saw was that the minister was on the floor of Parliament.
That is why I indicated that, I mean, somebody's playing politics with social security. And in most jurisdictions, you don't mix the two.
Let me ask you, though, in handling all of this, from everything we've heard, the board chair of SNIT, Elizabeth Ohene, how do you feel she has fared in handling all of these issues?
It all has to do with the background of the person. If the person does not understand the business, I mean, you find most of his or her actions questionable. And I don't know her background, but if I examine the sequence of events under her leadership, I would dare believe that she hasn't got the relevant background. I'm not questioning her competence, but I'm sure she hasn't got the relevant background to be able to, you know, head an institution like Social Security. It's a purely technical area, and it's about time we take the business of Social Security important in this country.
To conclude, final words, corporate image of SNIT, it's on the line. We've spoken about, you know, the issues. What next for SNIT? What next for organized labor? What do you want to see? Final question.
Yeah, so for me, I think all stakeholders will need to come together. We need to have a dialogue. I mean, that is the first thing we have to do. We need to bring back the corporate image of the trust. We need to let people understand that, look, this is the biggest. We can't do without it. Let's not be talking about SNIT management. This thing belongs to all of us. So I feel we have gotten to a point where we have to, all of us as stakeholders, the media, organized labor, worker unions, everybody, including the informal sector, all of us would have to come together and support the trust at this point so that they can continue to carry on with their mandate of collecting contributions from employers, investing those contributions, and paying benefits as we have. This is very, very critical. If the corporate image of SNIT breaks down, I think we should put effort in mending it. If it breaks down, it's going to affect all of us. So we have gotten to a point where we need to support the trust to carry on with its business of paying benefits.
Thank you so much, Mashud. A comment coming through. Kwekwe Mponsayabwa says, Elizabeth is a journalist by profession. Yes, so we are aware. You can have a journalist who is also like Raymond Akwa, energy-related issues. So you can have that. But his bit is that, does she have what is required at that stage? When he was talking about actuarial values and all of that, do they even appreciate these things when they say some of the things they do? Maulong Kwabe says, good morning, Mr. Akakwa and your great team and guests at large, watching live from cantonments. Thank you all for watching. And this has been our conversation on SNIT, our pensions, the supposed sale of shares or stake in some of our hotels, and now that deal that has crumbled, and the way forward for our pensions pot. The one who joined us, Executive Director, Africa Center for Retirement Research, Mashud Abdallah, has been my guest on this beat. Well, stay with us. We still have a lot more action coming your way. We shall, if we get that feed, also find out whether organized labor is going to go ahead with this intended strike. We'll be right back on the AM Show.